You know that feeling? When you think you've finally climbed out of the deepest, darkest hole. When you've forgiven the unforgivable, rebuilt brick by painful brick, and actually dared to hope again. Yeah, that's exactly where I was. His affair nearly destroyed me, shattered my world into a million pieces. The lies, the betrayal. It felt like drowning. But somehow, against every instinct screaming no, we chose reconciliation. We went to counseling, cried endless tears, talked until dawn. He promised it was over, swore it was the biggest mistake of his life. And slowly, agonizingly slowly, I started to let myself trust again, to believe in us again. That fragile trust, that hard-won forgiveness. It felt precious, terrifying, but real. Pause. Voice thickens. This morning started. Normal, mundane, even sunlight streaming in, the smell of coffee brewing. Mark was humming in the shower. After everything, moments like that felt like tiny miracles, a quiet peace I thought we'd earned. He left his phone on the kitchen counter while grabbing his keys. A notification lit up the screen. A name. Her name. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just an old message, something left over from the past we were supposedly burying. The timestamp. It was this morning. Sent just minutes ago, while he was smiling at me over scrambled eggs, while he kissed me goodbye. Voice drops to a horrified whisper. That phone felt like it was burning in my hand. All that work, all that pain, all that desperate hope, it vanished in an instant, replaced by a sickening soul-deep ache I recognized too well. The messages were right there, unread. Proof waiting, forgiveness offered, trust rebuilt, only to be smashed apart before the coffee was even cold. What did it say? Was it all a lie? Every single word he'd whispered in the dark, every promise, the reconciliation. Was it just another layer of the betrayal? My hands are shaking just holding it. Do I even want to know? My mind flashed back to that first time, the gut-punch discovery months ago. The secret texts, the deleted calls, the gaslighting when I dared to ask. Finding out he was cheating felt like the world stopped turning. The rage, the heartbreak, the sheer disbelief. It's a pain I wouldn't wish on anyone. I remember screaming, throwing things, the feeling that my whole life was a lie he'd carefully constructed. It took weeks just to get out of bed, to function like a person again. Pause, breath, shaky, choosing reconciliation. That wasn't weakness. It was the hardest damn thing I've ever done. It meant swallowing mountains of pride, facing friends and family who thought I was crazy, and sitting across from him in that therapist's office week after week, digging into wounds that felt raw and endless. We did the work, or at least, I thought we did. The long talks about trust issues, rebuilding intimacy, learning to communicate again. He seemed remorseful. He cried, genuine tears or so I thought, promised change, swore she was out of his life for good. He said I was what he wanted. He begged for a second chance. And slowly, painfully, I gave it to him. I let my guard down, brick by agonizing brick. I started believing his promises, started feeling safe in his arms again. We were planning date nights, talking about the future, even laughing together. It felt fragile, yes, but real. Like maybe, just maybe, we could survive this betrayal. Tone shifts to horrified realization, but now, holding this phone, feeling its cold weight, it all crashes down. That notification, her name, this morning, was every single moment since D-Day. Just an act. Was the therapy, the vulnerability, the late-night talks where I poured my broken heart out, was all of it just him playing a part, buying time? Did he ever actually stop seeing her? Or did he just get better at hiding it? The questions spin violently. That fragile trust we spent months painfully stitching back together. It feels like cheap thread snapping instantly. All those reassurances, the I love yous whispered in the dark after making love. Were they just lies whispered to keep me quiet, to keep his comfortable life intact while he carried on? My stomach churns, the phone screen blurs. I remember the times recently he seemed distant, the unexplained late nights working, the way he suddenly guarded his phone more. Signs I dismissed because we were reconciling, because I was trying so hard to trust. Was I just blind, stupid, hopeful? Is this the first message since we supposedly reconciled, or just the first one I've seen? The silence in the kitchen was deafening, louder than any scream. His phone felt like a live grenade in my hand. That single notification, her name, glowing bright against the dark screen, time-stamped mere minutes ago, wasn't just a message. It was a detonation. It blew apart the fragile world we'd spent months trying to rebuild. Reconciliation. It felt like a sick joke now. A performance where I was the only one who didn't know the script. My mind raced, replaying everything. Those late nights he claimed was spent catching up on work. The sudden protectiveness over his phone again after months of leaving it lying around openly. Little things I'd brushed aside, telling myself, don't be paranoid. You chose to trust. He's trying now. They felt like glaring neon signs I'd deliberately ignored. Was the therapy just him learning better lines? Were the tears he shed in our sessions, the heartfelt apologies whispered in the dark, or just manipulation? Did he ever truly end the affair, or did he just become an expert at compartmentalizing his double life? The thought made me physically ill. That second chance I gave him, did he just see it as permission to be sneered? And what about her, the other woman? Did she know he'd supposedly ended things with me months ago? Was she sitting somewhere right now, blissfully unaware she was tangled up in this messy emotional affair? Or did she know everything? Did they laugh together about how easily I'd swallowed his lies? Did they mock my attempts to rebuild trust, my desperate hope for our marriage? The humiliation burned hotter than the initial betrayal. I'd fought so hard to forgive, to move past the infidelity, only to find the wound wasn't healing because he was still stabbing it. The worst part, the uncertainty. Was this the only message? The first slip-up in months? Or was it just the tip of an iceberg I'd been sailing blindly over? How many times had he messaged her while holding my hand, while telling me he loved me, while we sat in the therapist's office talking about rebuilding intimacy? The potential scale of the deception was suffocating. Every happy memory from the last few months suddenly felt tainted, poisoned. Was any of it real? My finger hovered over the screen. One touch, one swipe. The truth, whatever devastating form it took, was right there. Proof, but knowing felt like stepping off a cliff. It meant the end of the fragile peace, the end of the exhausting work of reconciliation. It meant facing that soul-crushing pain of betrayal all over again, but this time laced with a bitter taste of my own foolish hope. Could I handle seeing the words, the pictures, knowing exactly how deep the lies went? My breath hitched. The phone screen blurred. The notification pulsed a tiny, cruel heartbeat in my palm, to look or not to look. Either way, the life I thought we were rebuilding was already shattered. Again. The silence in the kitchen pressed in, thick and suffocating. Only the frantic hammering of my own heart filled the void. His phone, that sleek little rectangle of betrayal, felt like it was burning a hole right through my palm. My thumb trembled, hovering just above the screen. One tiny movement, one swipe. The truth, whatever ugly, devastating shape it took, was inches away. Proof that all the therapy sessions, the tearful promises, the exhausting work of reconciliation, it was all just ash. Lies layered on top of the original, gutting lie. My mind was a battlefield. One voice screamed, "Look, you need to know. See the proof of his deception. See how deep the betrayal really runs." It demanded justice, demanded the awful clarity of knowing exactly how he'd mocked my trust. But another voice, raw and terrified, whispered, "Don't. What if it's worse? What if it's not just messages? What if you see things you can never unsee?" Knowing felt like stepping onto a minefield. Could I survive seeing the words he wrote to her while telling me he loved me? Could I handle seeing pictures, plans, evidence that their affair wasn't just continuing, but thriving right under my nose? The fear of that pain was almost as paralyzing as the betrayal itself. The notification icon seemed to pulse, mocking me, her name, right there, on a morning that started with ordinary scrambled eggs and his stupid humming in the shower. The sheer normalcy of it now felt like the cruelest part. He'd kissed me goodbye, looked me right in the eye. How could he do that? How could he sit across from me at dinner last night, talking about future vacations, while secretly texting her? Was every single moment of our supposed healing just an act, a carefully constructed illusion to keep me compliant while he carried on his double life? The scale of the potential deception made me dizzy. How many lies, how many secret meetings? How many times had he reassured me, swearing the affair was dead, while actively feeding it? I heard the distant rumble of the garage door opening. He was back. He'd forgotten something. Panic shot through me, icy and sharp. Time was up. The fragile peace was already shattered, but the confrontation was hurtling towards me. Did he know? Had he realized he'd left his phone? Would he walk in smiling, oblivious, or would his face instantly show guilt? My breath caught in my throat. The decision was ripped away. There was no more time to agonize over looking or not looking. He was coming now. The door from the garage clicked open. Footsteps sounded in the hallway, getting closer. I stood frozen in the kitchen, his phone still clenched in my white-knuckled hand, the damning notification glowing like an accusation. The air crackled with unspeakable tension. Every beat of my heart echoed like a drum. He rounded the corner, stopping dead when he saw my face. His eyes flicked to the phone in my hand, then back to mine. The color drained from his face. That single look had told me everything, and nothing. The silence stretched thin and brittle, ready to snap. What happens next? The truth, or more lies? He opened his mouth to speak. His footsteps froze in the hallway. The color draining from his face wasn't just guilt, it was pure, unadulterated panic. His eyes, wide and startled, locked onto the phone in my white-knuckled grip, then snapped back to mine. That look, it confirmed everything. The notification screamed, yet offered no explanation, just raw fear. It's not what you think, Sarah," he stammered, the words tumbling out too fast, too desperate. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by a shaky breathlessness that only fueled my dread. He took a hesitant step forward, hand outstretched as if to grab the phone back. "Please, just give it to me. Let me explain." The sheer audacity of that request after reconciliation, after months of therapy supposedly rebuilding trust, ignited a fresh wave of fury beneath the crushing weight of betrayal. Explain. My voice came out ragged, trembling with the effort to hold back a scream. Explain this. I thrust the phone towards him, the screen still lit, her name burning bright. From this morning, Mark, while you were making coffee, while you kissed me goodbye. What possible explanation could there be for her texting you now? He flinched, shrinking back slightly. Okay, he breathed, running a shaky hand through his hair. Look, it's complicated. Things happened recently with her. He avoided my eyes, staring at the floor. She wouldn't leave me alone, Sarah. She started threatening things, saying she'd tell you stuff, make stuff up. I was just trying to handle it quietly, to protect us, to protect what we've rebuilt. I didn't want to drag you back into this mess. His voice cracked, pleading. I thought I could make it stop without you ever knowing. It was a new layer of deception, woven into the fabric of our fragile reconciliation. A secret struggle he'd hidden, supposedly to protect me. Or just another lie to cover his tracks. The idea that he'd been secretly communicating with her again, even under duress, felt like salt ground into an already gaping wound of broken trust. My mind reeled. Was she blackmailing him? Over what, the original affair? Or something else, something worse? And why hadn't he told me? Didn't our hard-won trust mean anything? Didn't the therapy teach him that secrets destroy? Before I could demand answers, the phone buzzed violently in my hand. Another notification. From her. Right now. My eyes flicked down instinctively. The preview text flashed before I could stop myself. 3 words. Just 3 words that sucked the air from my lungs and sent the world tilting violently. I'm pregnant, Mark. The silence that followed wasn't just quiet, it was a vacuum. The frantic explanations about threats, the pleas about protection, it all vanished, replaced by a single, devastating sentence echoing in the void. His face went sheet white, eyes wide with a terror that looked utterly genuine. He hadn't known. Or had he? The stakes didn't just rise, they exploded. Reconciliation felt like a distant, pathetic dream. This wasn't just about emotional infidelity or broken promises anymore. This was a potential life, a permanent, undeniable consequence of his betrayal, surfacing now, shattering any illusion of moving past the affair. Was it true? Was it his? Was this why he'd been secretly texting her? Not because of threats, but because the fragile trust we'd fought for lay in splinters at our feet. The notification pulsed in my hand, a cruel, undeniable accusation. His mouth opened and closed silently, no sound coming out. The weight of those 3 words hung between us, crushing, suffocating, changing everything. What happens when betrayal isn't just emotional, but has a heartbeat? The words, I'm pregnant, Mark, hung in the air like poison gas. My vision tunneled, the kitchen tilting violently. My own breath sounded ragged and far away. I stared at Mark, his face bone white, eyes wide with a terror that looked utterly real, utterly shocked he hadn't known. Or was he that good an actor after everything? He stumbled back a step, shaking his head, a strangled sound escaping his throat. No, he whispered, then louder, almost frantic. No, Sarah, that's impossible. She's lying. She has to be lying. He raked both hands through his hair, pulling at it. This is what I meant about the threats. She's trying to destroy us. She said she'd make up something big if I didn't. He trailed off, realizing what he'd just admitted. Didn't what? Mark, my voice was eerily calm, a terrifying counterpoint to the storm inside me. Didn't keep talking to her, didn't keep stringing her along, or didn't keep paying her. The blackmail theory solidified, cold and ugly. Is that what the messages were about? Money, hush money for the affair you swore was over. He flinched as if struck. It's not like that. She went crazy after I ended it, started calling constantly, showing up places. I was scared, Sarah, scared of what she might do, what she might tell you, I thought. I thought if I just kept her calm, paid her a little to leave us alone. His voice broke. I was trying to protect what we had. I was terrified of losing you all over again. The justification, the desperation in his eyes, it almost sounded plausible almost. But the foundation was rotten. He hadn't ended it. He'd just hidden it, deeper, traded one form of betrayal for another, emotional entanglement replaced by secret payments and fear, reconciliation built on more lies. The trust wasn't broken, it was pulverized, and the baby, azed, the words scraping my throat raw. Is that part of her crazy too? A lie to extort more money? Mark's shoulders slumped. He looked utterly defeated, exhausted. It has to be, he whispered, but the doubt flickered in his eyes. He truly didn't know. Then came the twist, the final wrenching revelation he hadn't planned to share. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a profound, shameful sorrow I'd never seen before. Sarah, he said, his voice barely audible. Even if it was possible, it couldn't be mine. He swallowed hard, the admission seeming to physically pain him. I found out months before the affair even started, during those tests when we were trying. He couldn't meet my eyes. I'm infertile. 0 sperm count, the doctor said. It was impossible. I never told you because I was ashamed, devastated. I couldn't face it, couldn't face you knowing I couldn't give you what you wanted. The air left my lungs infertile before the affair. All those painful months of trying, the hope dwindling, the silent blame I'd sometimes unfairly directed at myself, and he'd known the truth. He'd carried that secret, that shame, and instead of leaning on me, he'd sought escape in another woman. The affair wasn't just a betrayal of our marriage. It was a betrayal born from a lie he kept about us, about our future. The pregnancy claim was likely a cruel hoax or belonged to someone else, but that didn't matter anymore. The damage was absolute. The affair, the lies during reconciliation, the secret payoffs, and now this, the foundational secret that shattered the last illusion of who he was or what our marriage had ever been. I looked at the man I'd fought so hard to forgive, to rebuild with, the man who'd looked me in the eye and promised change, the man drowning in his own web of deception. The pity warring with the rage finally settled into a chilling, absolute clarity. Without a word, I slowly placed his phone, the instrument of his final undoing, onto the counter. The screen had gone dark. I walked past him, the distance between us now an uncrossable chasm. In our bedroom, I pulled out the small suitcase I'd optimistically stored away months ago, believing we'd moved past needing it. I opened the drawer where I kept my important documents. My hands didn't shake anymore. There was only a numb, resolute certainty. The sound of his choked sob followed me from the kitchen, but I didn't turn around. The reconciliation was over. Forgiveness had reached its limit. It was time to save the only person I could, myself. The front door clicked shut behind me, the sound echoing in the silent hallway. The storm wasn't over, but I was finally walking out of the rain. The sound of the car door slamming shut behind me was louder than any argument we'd ever had. It echoed in the quiet street, a final punctuation mark. I sat for a moment in the driver's seat, the engine running, the suitcase beside me, feeling less like an escape and more like a brutal necessity. The house, the life I'd desperately tried to rebuild after the affair, stood dark and silent in the rearview mirror. Reconciliation wasn't just broken, it was incinerated. The ashes of trust felt cold. The weeks that followed were a blur of numbness and sharp, unexpected pain. Moving into a small apartment felt like starting over at rock bottom. Friends rallied, offering shoulders and spare furniture. My sister became my rock, listening without judgment as I dissected the layers of lies, the affair, the secret payoffs during our supposed healing, the bombshell of his infertility hidden long before he ever strayed. That last secret cut deepest. It wasn't just the infidelity. It was the years of shared grief over not conceiving, a grief built on a foundation he knew was false. The betrayal felt geological. As for her, the pregnancy claim, it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Mark, through a terse lawyer-mediated email contact, was strictly cut off. Confirmed she'd admitted it was a desperate lie. A final, twisted attempt to manipulate him after the money stopped. Proof of the blackmail attempt was handed over. It didn't bring relief, only a sour taste. It was just another ugly thread in the tangled mess his deception had woven. Therapy became my anchor, not for us but for me, untangling the complex knot of grief for the marriage I thought I had, grief for the future we'd planned, grief for the trust I'd poured into reconciliation was exhausting. I learned the hard way that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, not an obligation to the person who broke you. Forgiving him wasn't the point anymore. It was about releasing the anger poisoning my own soul. Rebuilding wasn't about us. It was about rediscovering me. My worth wasn't tied to his failures or his broken promises. Seeing Mark once, accidentally across a crowded street months later, was jarring. He looked diminished, haunted. There was no wave, no acknowledgement, just a flicker of recognition. Then we both looked away. There was no satisfaction in it, only a profound, weary sadness for the colossal waste of it all. The love hadn't just died, had been systematically dismantled by deceit. Now the sharp edges of the pain have softened, though the scar remains. The journey from shattered trust to shaky self-reliance has been long and often lonely, but the silence in my apartment isn't filled with suspicion or dread anymore. It's just peace, my own peace. I'm learning to trust again, slowly, cautiously, starting with trusting my own instincts, the ones I ignored for too long. The biggest lesson: reconciliation only works if both people are committed to brutal honesty and rebuilding on solid ground. Anything less is just delaying the inevitable collapse. My worth was never defined by his ability to be faithful. It was always mine to claim. And finally, quietly, I am